All right, and we are live. Well, that was fun. That was that was a nice, relaxing win for the most part. But before I get into the game, I actually don't have any guests scheduled for today's show. So if you want to come up, chat through a fun game, talk about the Pistons in general, please shoot me a DM. I'll keep checking them, and we'll get you up straight away. But uh, yeah, let's talk about that game. That's easily the Pistons, I would say, most complete game of the season. Uh, I think maybe the Lakers game was a really good one as well, but they win by 20 points over the Wizards, 124 to 104, and they controlled the game for pretty much the entire time, except for a little bit in the fourth there. But it was Yeah, that was, like I said, the most complete game I've seen them play. So many good individual performances, which I'll go through all of them in a moment. But I think where I want to start is just zooming out a bit, just where this team sits overall. They're now fifth in the East, which I know the East is all over the place right now in terms of, I think there's now four teams that are 500, and only three of those are over 500. So, look, it's still a bit all over the place. But the Pistons now are 7-8. They sit fifth, behind the Knicks, who are 6-6 in fourth. And yeah, it's not like they've had an easy schedule. Uh, they have another back-to-back tomorrow. They're third of the season so far. They've played half their games on the road. They've played some of the best teams in the East. And so to be sitting at 7-8, I think is just honestly the best feeling. I think as fans, there would be a very, very small minority that expected this. I feel like I've said this every stream, but to be 7-8 is just crazy. Like I just tweeted out before, like this is officially my favorite Pistons team, just in terms of like the amount of fun I'm have watching them. Like prior to that, it was that 2017, 2018 Pistons team that started 14-6, and those first 20 games were probably the most fun and hope I've ever had as a fan. Some will say that's depressing, but it's just the truth. So I think this team has now eclipsed that, just because of the same thing, the mixture of joy and hope. It's right up there with the most I've ever felt. And I know they just beat the Wizards tonight, and the Wizards honestly look like the Pistons of last year. But it's just so much fun. And tonight's game, to pretty much for the most part be able to sit back, relax, um, and just enjoy that game, see the players smiling. It's really fun to be a part of that and just to see it happening right now. And um, yeah, I'm just gonna get to some comments here. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you, mate. Hope you're having a good time there up in the Gold Coast. Appreciate you tuning in, my friend. Uh, TJB was spanking Kuzma every time for the rest of his career. Yeah, I saw Pistons Talk had a funny final score graphic with that "Don't be that team" tweet from Kuz. So I think the Pistons are now at least 2-0 or 3-0 since that tweet. So uh, against them, so that's hilarious. Uh, yeah, Moses, I haven't looked at the schedule for December, but it has softened up a bit here. Sorry, guys. It has softened up a bit in the past week and a half, I want to say. But so look, I have no doubt it gets a bit tougher in December. But look, we're 7-8. December's still a couple of weeks away, so I'm going to keep riding the vibes. Uh, Beasley Arrow Jack. Don't know if you've seen the Pistons' recent interview with Beasley, but it was very insightful and worth a watch. I did see some clips, and I think I will give that a watch for sure, because he's a guy I'm going to talk about in a moment. Um, Beasley was thug shaking a lot. Yeah, his vibes are so good for this team, and like he's playing amazing. Like best value contract in the NBA right now. Um, like, but his vibes and just the overall kind of leadership and energy he brings is really crucial. I think it's playing a huge part, just as much as his on-court production. Just Football Academy, exactly right. We were 2 free throws away from a 3-0 record on the road on this road trip. It is impressive. And honestly, the Pistons are 2 free throws and a box out away from being 9-6 right now. Like, think about that. That's insane. So, no matter what the schedule is, the fact that they are that close to being a 9-6 team, like, the growth is crazy. And I didn't think you could have this kind of growth, at least this early in the season after last year. I thought they would be much better this season. They couldn't be any worse, but I thought it might take a little bit of time with a new coach and a lot of new key players playing big minutes. But yeah, it's impressive. Well, I'll get to some more comments, but I should actually talk about the game a bit more in depth. But I think just because we expected them to win tonight, so I think it's important just to start with like the overall view on this season, and like, it's hard not to smile when talking about this team right now. But I think where I want to go first is Malik Beasley. I just mentioned then the Pistons signed him for $6 million this offseason. It wasn't on the first couple of days of free agency from memory, but I don't want to say it was an afterthought signing. We were all excited, but because of the shooting he brings. But Beasley tonight, like, scored his 20 plus points for the 5th time in 6 games. Like, he's been incredible. Like, just me and Cody were talking about it last time. Like, he is the one guy on this team that will hit a shot when they need it. And it doesn't have to always be when they're behind or in a close game. Like, the start of that third quarter, he just came out and hit like 2 threes and immediately gets that lead out to like 18. And it's just so nice to have a guy like that who isn't afraid to shoot, never going to be afraid to shoot. He's had plenty of games where he's shot like 5 of 15, 5 of 17, but every single night he comes back and he's going to just keep jacking his shots up, and he's going to get, more often than not, he's going to drain more than half. And tonight, if I look at it here, so he finished with 26 points, 6 of 11 from 3, 10 of 16 from the field in 29 minutes. As someone else said earlier, he's thug shaking. He was like up and about. His vibes were amazing. And I think, like, I don't know if I say the Pistons should extend him. I don't know if it's still too early for that, but like, it feels like it's getting close to a no-brainer to extend him. I kind of thought before the season, like him or THJ, if they're playing really well, you look to move them at the deadline. But I think just as it relates to Beasley, and when I say to move them, it's like you move one because they kind of bring a similar skill set. And the thinking was get something for them before you lose them. But Beasley, with the leadership he's bringing, the vibes, the buy-in he has to this team and this franchise, like, I think an extension kind of just seems like a no-brainer. And the nerds, I'm pretty sure he's 28 years old. That one clip I saw from his interview, he said he was 28 because people were calling him an old head, and he said, I'm only 28. So, yeah, you can extend him. I don't know what it would cost, but the past 2 seasons he's signed a vet minimum with the Bucks and now the Pistons. So it seems like a no-brainer. I don't know exactly what the value would be of that contract, but he's been incredible. And he's only gotten better as a starter, to be honest. So it's interesting because Tim Hardaway Jr. is listed as questionable, and he's like, THJ has been exceptional as well. Like, prior to his that injury he suffered a few games ago, THJ might have been the best player of those 3. But now the past 3 games, like, I think Beasley's overtaken him, but THJ's still been awesome. But it's going to be interesting to see what JB does with that starting lineup, because it's certainly looking really good with Malik Beasley there at the 3, at least offensively. So yeah, shout out to Bees, just being exceptional pickup. And I think I saw someone say, Jack, I don't know if it was in these comments here or on Twitter, but someone was like, Jack, he's like the first free agent we've signed that's actually come in and been like shot to the level they have prior in a long time. And like, I don't know if that's 100% accurate, but it feels accurate. It feels like every time the Pistons sign someone via free agency, they come in and they can't shoot. Like I believe Tobias Harris is going to figure it out. And he had a nice game tonight, but or a solid game. But yeah, his 3-point shooting's fallen off a cliff since coming here. So yeah, I'm with you, Nuggies. Man, give Beasley his money. I don't even care. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. Like you have to at this point. So interesting. And just so fun to watch him. The next player or players I'm going to go to is the Pistons backcourt. Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham. Like seriously, those two tonight. That's what we all envisioned. That's what they have done more often than not this season, in terms of they combine for, I think, 49 points. Cade has a triple double. Ivy goes for 28, 8 assists. Both shoot over 50%. Both shoot over 50% from three. Like, both got to the free throw line a little bit. I know they're playing the Wizards, but I think both of them needed those games. Like, Cade had put up some big box scores, but his efficiency had really dipped in the past few games. And then Ivy hadn't looked 100% the same since he missed some time with that injury, with the toe injury a game ago. Like, he'd only been back for 2 games, but he needed a game like tonight just to get those percentages back up and show that the start of the season wasn't just kind of a hot streak for him. But still more work to do to prove that. But those two are so fun. Like Jaden Ivey tonight, especially. Like Cade was just controlled, calm, efficient the whole night. He also had 5 steals, Cade. I didn't see that. Like awesome game from Cade, but I think Ivy stood out more to me because like his change of direction, pace, ball handling, just like was crazy tonight. He hit a step back 3. He hit 2 buzzer beaters to close the first and second quarter. And he was just in control for most of the night as well. And, you look across at the Wizards and, I can only just think like, it just reminded me of like, wow, it's so nice to be on a team that seems to have their young core, like their young core's starting to rise, at least with Ivy and Cunningham. Like, it's nice to be that team now, and you're going against the full-blown rebuilding teams trying to figure out if they have one guy. It was just nice to watch Cade and Ivy do what they should do against a team like the Wizards, but just to be on the other side, because there's been so many times where we've sat in Wizards fans' positions and just felt helpless and hoping that we have a guy. But the Pistons seem to, Cade's always been a guy, I feel like, after last season. Then Ivy, I think's getting to that point where I think an extension this summer wouldn't be crazy at all. So those two were great. I'll have highlights out on their games, but if you want to have some fun, go back and watch the first half and the last quarter, or the second half of the last quarter. Like, yeah, those two are making some seriously good plays. I might look at some more comments here before I get to a few other players because there was so many good performances tonight. JB actually played like 10 guys in the rotation, which I think is the first time he's done that when it hasn't been a result of foul trouble. So there's plenty of other players to talk about. What else do we have here? 3-on-3 report. Lions win by 50 and Pistons win by 20. What a day. The Lions actually win by 50. Holy crap. That's insane. That is crazy. I think I think it was a couple of weeks ago when I streamed on a Sunday. It was the first time they'd won in like 3 years or something on the same day. So 2 wins in like that shorter time period on the same day is crazy. Feels like look, I don't pay a lot of attention to other Detroit sports teams, but it's often across my Twitter timeline. Like, I don't know how the Red Wings are going, but it feels like all Detroit teams, like the Tigers obviously had their crazy run, the Lions are Super Bowl favorites from everything I see, and then the Pistons, they feel like the play-in at least now feels like a real thing for the Pistons. Like I know I'm not trying to drink too much Kool-Aid, I promise, but just from what we've seen, it feels like the play-in and the postseason is actually a possibility for this team. So love to see it for all my Detroit friends because we've been through a lot of pain with sports in the past decade. So it's a good time to be Detroit sports fan. Um, Sean Haddix, get some. This team is not quite the bad boys, but I'm calling him the ornery boys. I love it. I love it. I feel like it's interesting. Like they have the elements of the two most successful eras in Pistons basketball. They have the star backcourt. Um, had Thomas and Isaiah and Dumas, and then you have Rip Billups. I know like Rip wasn't a star, but like he was still an all star, and like now you've got Kate and Ivy. It's fun. There's those parallels for sure between successful Pistons teams of the past. So we're still a long way away from those comparisons being like a real thing, but yeah, we're seeing some positive signs. Bet the Bucks would rather have Beasley than Trent right about now. Wow, absolutely would. I wonder if is that how it actually played out though? Like, I feel like Trent was signed really, really late in the off season because I remember him being someone the Pistons fans wanted. We are talking about that in like August, I feel like, but yeah, that would hurt seeing the way Beasley played. I think Beasley dropped like 28 and had like 5 assists or something when they played the Bucks a few days ago. JIK could be one of the best backcourts in the league this year. Absolutely. I mean, I think Ivy's got to pick up his play a little bit, but yeah, more games like tonight, and there's no reason why they can't be by the end of the season, for sure. But yeah, the fact we're even having that conversation is so fun. Nuggies, 4 M1s, 3 buzzer beaters, 5 crazy assists, fantastic from 3, great defense too. Ivy was insane. He was. I think he was the player of the game. I know I opened with Beasley, but I feel like Ivy was player of the game. In that, like in the first quarter or first half, he had 14 on like 14 shots. Like it wasn't the most efficient, but he was like had the highest plus minus, and not that that's like everything, but you just felt like his aggression was just giving the Wizards fits. And he was awesome. Like the box score looks awesome in the end, but I just felt like his aggression and everything, like he took over that game for sure. Which is awesome for JO because his next step is like continuing. Like he needs to, when this team's actually really pushing to win every single game and has like a playoff to conference finals type um, bar set as the like they need him to be that guy that can take over for 5 minutes in a quarter multiple times a game. Like they absolutely need that. That's what this team has missed sometimes, especially when Ivy's been off the court or Cade's been off the court. Like they need that secondary scorer. And Ivy's, I think he'll be up closer to around 20 points a game now after tonight. But if he can replicate the type of play he did tonight more often, then like that is the perfect complementary piece to K. Because K can handle the ball for 70% of the game. It's when you need him handling it every time, every possession down the floor. That's when the turnovers start. Like I think Kate only had like 2 turnovers tonight. I know it's against the Wizards, but when he has a more dynamic option to go to and get the ball out of his hands, it makes everyone's life so much easier. And I think that's also why, like, we're seeing Marcus Sasser get minutes now for the past 3 or 4 games. And you see, just because Sasser, like, he's not the best playmaker, right? But his ball handling and ball security, like his ability just to shift the defense, get into the paint, get to his floater or get to his pull up as well as hit threes. Like just having another guy that can do that and not turn the ball over is so key to helping unlock Ivy and Cade. So if Ivy can do this more often and have those, like not so much the final box score, but just have those stretches where you just feel like he's the number one option right now because he's just clicking. His pace is so good. He's playing in control. Like if he can give you 3, 4 or 5 minute bursts a night like that, or maybe it's just 2. Like I think that really just helps this team so much, and it like is crucial for this team's long term success. Yeah, absolutely. Don't know. It's kind of just touched on that, but absolutely. The Red Wings are doing all right. What's all right? Is that like 500? Because I know the Red Wings, the expectations are quite high from the people I've spoken to. Not for this season, but just that franchise in general. So, um, kind of in no man's land. That sounds like the to that 2010s Pistons. Uh, Zale, yeah, at this point, don't beat that team. Yeah, I think I was saying earlier off the top, someone brought up Kuzma. I'm pretty sure the Pistons are now at least 2-0, maybe 3-0 against the Wizards since Kuzma tweeted that out. So that's a serious jinx he's put on his own team. If there was no Stu, Ballum would put up 10 shots at the post. Oh, yeah, I thought Stu's. So maybe we'll talk about the bigs now. So Stu and Duran tonight, the game, we were all over the place to start this game because the Pistons PR, they normally tweet out the starters for the game 30 minutes before tip off every night. And the starting lineup had Stu as a starter and Jalen Duran wasn't listed as out. So obviously all of us were like, wait, so Duran's been benched? Because last game, Duran and Stu pretty much played 24 minutes each. Stu was, the much superior player, at least defensively. And, you know, I didn't actually think we were going to see Stu start over Durant at this point of the season, but after seeing Pistons PR tweet that out, like the official Pistons account, it was like, okay, it's happening. But then about 15 minutes later, it was corrected as a mistake and Durant started. But I was just going to pull up their stats here because I thought both were solid. I thought, as pointed out here, I thought Stu's defense on Valanciunas was exceptional. Like Valanciunas is a huge guy. He's 7 foot, massive Lithuanian, loves to like back you down in the post. Just to, I've watched Valanciunas cook the Pistons all the way back until like 2012 when he used to just monster Andre Drummond every time Toronto would play the Pistons. Valanciunas would go off for 20 plus, which for a guy like that was ridiculous. Like he'd have some 30-point nights in there. He'd just dominate the Pistons. So watching Stu tonight defend him, Valanciunas could kind of move him a little bit, but once it got into the actual painted area, Stu was just like a brick wall. And he, I'm not sure what Valanciunas finished with, but he probably still had like 8 points or something because he's just like that skilled around the rim. But he's not like he's a guy that could have tonight kind of not won the game for the Wizards. That's ridiculous. But just, he was a guy I was prepared for to go off for like 15 to 20, and I don't think he had close to that. And I thought Stu's defense was excellent. Stu hit a 3 tonight. He had 9 points, 6 boards. I think a block in there as well, 50% from the field. He even hit like this turnaround fadeaway on the elbow at the end of the shot clock. Like, awesome game from Stu. I thought, Duran was in foul trouble for much of the game. And, Stu, once again, I just thought did his job great defensively. And like I tweeted it out, but every time he hits a 3, like it just gives me the biggest smile on my face. Like, because that is what this team needs. Like, if he can hit threes and play the defense he's playing, it's the guy I've always envisioned him being for this team in the past 2 years. But that's the player I've envisioned Pistons fans absolutely loving because once this team is winning, like they kind of are now, but once they get to a postseason, like Isaiah Stewart, I guarantee you he's going to be like that PJ Tucker type player that every other team would love to have in their rotation. And just I'm talking like Rockets PJ Tucker, like that was like the ultimate like gritty 4-man, hit threes, rebounded, bit undersized, but just like a player that like every winning team would want. And that is like who I believe Stu is. And obviously he's at the 5, but like I think if the 3 ball comes back around on a consistent basis, like I think he's already worth his contract, like, and just everything else he brings to the team. But yeah, I think Pistons fans are going to, because Stu's for some reason, I think it's because of the silly fouls and some of the other stuff he does off the court, on the court, the text and that. Like a lot of fans don't seem to like Stu or appreciate. I don't think they just don't. I feel like that he's a bit misunderstood as a player because he's been put into positions like in prior seasons where he's not at his best. But I think if he can hit the three as a backup five, Pistons fans are going to fall back in love with Isaiah Stewart. Um, and then Jalen Duren only played the 18 minutes, double double, box score. Like always looks good for JD as long as he's playing the minutes. Free throws, free throw shooting has just completely disappeared this season. 1 of 4 tonight. I think he might be below 50% now. Yeah, I thought he was solid. Like a couple of like the thing I'm just now that I'm watching every game live in real time, since I've been doing this full time, like I knew it last season, but Jalen Duran, like we talk about how good of an athlete he is, but I think he's a very powerful athlete. But I think each and every game I watch, the lateral quickness just isn't there. And I think that's why he struggles a lot. Like, I think for JD, half of it's like trying to learn and understand rotations and be quick enough, like his awareness for sure. But I don't think he has the speed to recover. And he's just late so often. But it didn't hurt the Pistons tonight. He had some nice moments on offense. Like, I'll never really have too much of an issue with his offensive game because for the most part, he's been playing within himself, only getting like 9 shot attempts tonight would be probably some of the most he's taken this season. But there is like, for some reason, there's just a couple of times per game where he grabs a rebound, brings all the way down the court, and he's just had a couple of turnovers doing that. Offensive fouls, had one tonight. That was his second foul. Like that, just get rid of that out of your game. Like, as in, I don't mind you grabbing and going a little bit, but dish it off at like half court because you can't get your second foul doing that. Like, you're too important to this team. So, but I thought he was solid. So that's kind of my thoughts on the bigs tonight. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Shu and Durant tonight, because I thought they were both solid. But yeah, Durant still has some things to clean up and work on. The nerds. I want the Pistons to make the play-in. We won't get the best odds for the draft, but we get screwed in it every year. Anyways, this is exactly my thinking. Like literally, like so, like I I think I'm like it's really tough because part of me feels like, wow, they're 7-8. It's like they've still like I truly still think they're a player, like whether it's a young player or they eventually trade for another star. Like I think just Cade and Ivy being your two primary scorers isn't enough. Like, I think they're a third guy or a second guy or a number one guy away, like from really having their core fully 100% locked in set. Um, so part of me is like, well, this draft, imagine if they got Cooper Flag. But like you say, they always get screwed in the draft. They always do. So it's like we saw the Hawks last year lose their playing game and then get the number one pick. Now that's probably not going to happen again this year. It probably won't happen for another 5 years at least. But these new lottery odds in the past, I think it was since the Zion draft, so the past 5 years, like, you know, you can jump up. Like it's not like the previous like 40 years of history when the first lottery was in 1984, where the odds were one way only, and it's you've got a huge sample size of history to see how it works. The past 5 years, it's completely changed. So you could, if you're the Pistons, like still win your 35 games, miss the play in, but that could still be a positive thing because you've won 35 games. Now your young core is that much more experience. They probably all improved, and you're at a stage where you can, other teams and other star players might look at the Pistons as a place they could be traded to and actually see success there. Like, I think that's important as well. Like, I know free agents probably aren't ever going to sign with the Pistons, like star ones. Like, just don't think that's going to happen. But the Pistons, if they can show that they're winning enough games, they've got Cade and Ivy on the rise, they have Asar Thompson on the wing. Like, I think a star would really consider that. Now, you'd probably have to give up one of Ivy or Asar to get a real star in this league. But I think there's honestly, like, as long as this team doesn't just fall off a cliff and win like 18 games, which I guess would still be good for the lottery. Like, I think there's so many ways this season can still go, and it's still a huge positive. And I think like there's so many options you have just if this team can continue to be competitive. Whether that's like I said, consolidating for a star in the off season, which I still think is an off season away, but or you can kind of win 32 games and you could jump into the top three in the lottery. Like there's just a lot of directions this season can go, and I think for the most part they're all positive, even if it means they don't make the play in or the playoffs, which I think is nice to feel like that because the past 4 years or whatever we've just apart from last year, like that season was miserable. Like, I've in the past barracked for losses because I wanted Wemby so bad, or Parlo the year before. Uh, Corey, I think the Pistons are a SAR slash under 26 trade for a defensive big away from being a good playoff team. Yeah, I kind of just spoke about it then. I think the leap from going from like a good playoff team to like an actual contender, there's still a main key player away from that. Like I just said, like a star or another, like say they got Cooper Flag. I still think they're that kind of piece away from being a true contender sometime in the next near future. But I agree, a healthier star. Um, I'm not sure if that's meant to be a plus or like a slash saying or, but yeah, a real starting defensive center. Um, I think that's legit, like from what we've seen. Cade with 5 steals and a block. He's playing solid defense this year. Absolutely, Jay. Wow. Absolutely. Like he still gets has his lapses off ball, but I think I tweeted out this morning some clips of his blocks. He's had the most clutch blocks in the NBA. He's probably averaging a block now and a steal per game. I think his buy-in on that end this season has been huge because mentioned a few times now, but the Pistons, like without a star in that starting lineup, they don't have a defensive anchor. Like Jalen Duren's just not there yet. He's just not. And normally it comes from your center position. But I think Cade most nights has been bringing that defensive playmaking, and it's hard for a wing to be, lock down the paint. They can't. But I think he can set a tone defensively with that starting group. I think Jaden Ivey's on-ball defense is much improved. Same with Cade's. But his buy-in consistency on that end has been really impressive and huge for this team, I think, because your best player is now setting the tone that end. And then you have guys like Stu who set the tone no matter what. I just can't wait for Asar to be back. Like, wow, we're going to be having some fun. We're going to be having a lot of fun when he's back. I don't know. I don't even care what Asar's stats look like. Just having him, I feel like we've gotten a bit of a sneak peek of it with Ron Holland on the court at times this season, but Asar is just going to be an absolute joy. YouTube user, the play-in is possible, still not probable. 30 wins will still be a successful season. Absolutely. 28 wins was my prediction. That might not. I still am not ready to say they're going to win 35, but 28 might be a bit low now. I think it's more now like that 30 to 32 for sure. But I 100% agree with you. Motor City Cruise. Just going to have a drink here, guys. Sorry. Do you think JB is getting tired of Ron constantly getting into it with other players? Was surprised he was benched after that tech. I like the edge, but you have to pick and choose your battles. Yeah, I don't know if JB be getting tired of it. I mean, I'm not sure how fans feel about it. I see some fans get really upset with stuff like what Ron did tonight, or especially when Stu does it. I don't mind it. I like the one Stu had against the Bucks. In the moment, I didn't care too much because I didn't think it was that dirty. Some people think it's dirty, but I didn't think it was that bad. No one was hurt. I get why he was ejected, but that type of play, you can't have those. But like tonight, um, yeah, that doesn't bother me. I like it. Be a gritty team. Like the Pistons have been getting bullied the past 2 years. Like I like when the Pistons bully other teams. Like be physical, push them around. Like you know what I mean? Like this Pistons team, like teams have just come in and laughed. So I don't know if JB would be tired of it, but you can't just. I think Ron as well hadn't really done much in those minutes, but I can't remember if he was pulled exactly for that, but he probably was. Um, so I don't think JB would be tired of it. I think Ron's best asset is his confidence and the edge he plays with. So it's obviously a balancing act, but I don't think Jay would be tired of it. He'll probably just tell him like that was an unnecessary one, but I don't think he's going to like bench him for multiple games or something because of it. I'd be pretty surprised. Yeah, appreciate you, Sean. If you could, guys, um, if you could like, subscribe. I mean, I appreciate you just watching. That's enough for me, but any extra support would be greatly appreciated. So thank you, Sean, for chucking that in there. Uh, Matt, sorry if you've covered this. What's your opinion on Asar fitting in? I haven't covered it this episode, but I think Asar to like we're just talking about when he returns. I think he will be coming off the bench and he'll be on a minutes restriction for at least the first week. I think he'll just be playing like 10 to 15 minutes. Just that's just a guess. I have no inside information. Maybe he plays like 18 minutes. But like, I think he fits in. I think he takes Ron Holland's a lot of Ron's minutes and a bit of Fontecchio's minutes if he can't. Fontecchio doesn't have it. Like Fontecchio's been a bit better recently, but for the most part, he's been struggling. So I think those are the two that lose the most minutes. And then Tim Hardaway Jr. a little bit. All three of those guys have played at Asar's position this season. Uh, Whether or not Asar starts this season, I'm not sure. Like it'll be very interesting because there's actually some solid lineup data from last year that includes Cade, Ivy, Asar, Duran, and Fontecchio. So you have the two non-shooters in Duran and Asar, but the Pistons, smallish sample size, showed they could be decent with that. You just need that one wing who can really shoot. So you have Tim Hardaway Jr. or Beasley you would have with those four. But I think for the first few weeks, Asar comes off the bench, and if the team continues to win, I think JB just continues to keep his starting lineup as is, with maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. in there. But because the Pistons right now, actually, I'm going to look this up, but I think I saw this morning they were seventh in defensive rating. So, like, Asar's the team's best defender, but like this team overall is defending at a, for what we expected, an exceptional level. So, defensive rating, the Pistons right now, they're eighth. They're eighth after tonight. Their net rating is almost even. They have the 14th best net rating with negative 0.3. So I think Asar's just going to come off the bench, take a lot of Ron's minutes, fly around, get rebounds, block steals. And then I think he could close games if they're playing against LeBron and the Lakers or some of those bigger wings. I think that's a real possibility. So hope that kind of answered your question. Those are my overall thoughts. Do it effortless. JB Bickerstaff deserves a lot of credit. Absolutely, he does. And I kind of shouted him out with a post a couple of days ago. Like, massive kudos to JB Bickerstaff and Trajan Langdon. Like, they are doing an exceptional job. The bar was so low last season that, it was impossible to go lower, really. But what he's done right now has exceeded my expectations. Like, so often coaches get all the criticism for when a team's struggling. So you've got to give it right back to JB for when the team's exceeding exceeding your expectations. I think he's been exceptional. Like the fact this team is top 10 in defense with the personnel is crazy to me. Like I didn't I thought this team would be a bit more slanted offensively, but that was just based on the talent. Because defensively, without Asar, like you only really have Stu as your true plus defender, but that's where guys like Cade and Ivy stepping up their effort has really helped. I think Beasley and THJ have tried their absolute best every time they're on the court. Tobias, I think, has been solid defensively for what you would expect. So the fact JB has them all bought in, I like some of his substitutions. His use of timeouts has been something we've spoke about on this stream a fair bit of sometimes the team has used their timeouts a bit early and it gets to the fourth and they're in a weird position. But overall, I think massive tick. He has to be in Coach of the Year consideration. I'm not sure he'll win it if the Pistons only win 35 games, but yeah, he has to be up there. Has to be. 3-on-3 report. I was just going to compare them to the 2019 Pistons. We almost made the playoffs last year, but it kind of feels like everyone knows the core is right now and isn't going to be competitive in the playoffs. Sorry, I'm just rereading. So I think, are you trying to say that 2019 team was like, we knew what it was? We knew like Blake was like, the end was near, like it had, the ceiling was not high. And so I think that's what you're saying. And I get, that's why that team for me, like I enjoyed Blake's run, but the 15-16 team, 17-18 team, even some of like Andre's, like maybe that season with Brandon Jennings before he teared his Achilles, they won 7 in a row. Those teams for some reason are more fun to me because of the hope aspect. That team had the most success. I think they were 41-41. Well, they made the playoffs, but you just knew that thing wasn't going to last. So that's why that's not that high for me, but I get why it is for a lot of people. But that team definitely had an expiry date on it, and the ceiling was capped, which is why, yeah, as you outlined there, it's this team's so much funner. YouTube user Duran was a better rebounder and scorer tonight. Stu was better on defense. Same old, yeah. Well said. Well said. Ryan, best game I've seen from Ivy playmaking wise. Great shout from you, Ryan. Great shout, and overall for that matter. I think the playmaking call, I love that because I'm. It's not even about the assist numbers. I think 8 would be his season high, but some of the reads he made, like he had this beautiful left-handed skip pass to Tobias in the corner and in the first half, which was just on the money. Like, and that's with his offhand. Like, they're the passes Cade and Luka Doncic make, and LeBron James. Like I haven't seen Ivy do that a lot in his career. Definitely capable. So those are the little leaps that you like just get you so excited. Like doing that in the pick and roll, playing with the patience, manipulating the defense, and not only manipulating defense, reading it enough to see Tobias's man come over to help and then flick it immediately. Like Jaden Ivey's doing that consistently. Like we're cooking. You should use that. Jack, you love plus minus. How is the Stew plus minus? I actually don't love plus minus. I just like using it when it suits my point because I know it's a bit of a misleading stat. I actually, and I don't know if you're trying to set me up here, but Duran was plus 22 and Stew was plus 3. So uh, there you go. So if you want to go by plus minus, Duran was a better player. Still think Stew was though tonight, but they were both solid. Nuggies, when Cade has 2 teammates that can shoot, his life is so easy. Yeah, we spoke about it earlier. The shooting, but then obviously just having Ivy and Sasa come in who can handle the ball a little bit. And then when they're hitting, like scoring like they did, like I'll see what Sasa had tonight. Probably only had like 5 or 6, but he had 7 points, hit a 3. Like that kind of stuff. Like those 7 points Sasa had, I think 2 of those were at least self-created. Like it's just that kind of stuff helps Cade as well so much. Sports will last. I love Beast Stew so much, man. Yeah, my favorite player. Like love everything he does. Plenty of deficiencies in his game. There's a hard player to watch at times on offense for just the way he gets things going and the way he scores around the basket can be very unconventional. But yeah, he's like I just think he's so important to this team. Oh, Cloudy, great shout. First game all season with less than 10 turnovers. Yeah, I actually, now that you say that, just before I got this started, I heard them say to JB Bickerstaff in his press conference, the Pistons had a season low 8 turnovers. Well, like, as you mentioned here, but only 8 turnovers for this team. That's like basically 0. Yeah, great backup 5, 100% YouTube user. If he can, that's why I never think Stu's going to be a starter like on a real winning team. I think, but if he can be a stretch 5 off the bench, that's an incredible player to have with the defense he plays. Cade was player of the game, triple-double with 5 steals. See, I thought Ivy was, but they were both like the Pistons, Ivy and Cunningham and Beasley, you could give it to any one of them. I just thought when the game was remotely close in the first half, I thought Ivy's decision-making, aggressiveness opened things up for this team. But if you want to give it to Cade, absolutely. I thought he was right there, obviously. Absolutely, sports will last. I hope so too. My while we've still got plenty of comments to get through, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I just want to pull up the Pistons schedule. So I was going to say for this week, but for next week, because I know in the US it's still only Sunday, but Detroit this week, they have 3 games. They finally have a 2-day break. They've played a game either back to back or every 2 days since opening night. Like, schedule's been ridiculously packed. I think it's because of the NBA Cup that whenever that tournament, the actual Vegas thing is, I think they have to condense it a bit. But it feels like the Pistons have just played so many games. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm now doing this full time, but I'm very happy to have a 2-day break. But they play Chicago tomorrow at home. Then Thursday, they travel to Charlotte to get some redemption, hopefully. And then this will be a huge game. Next Saturday night, or this Saturday, they travel to Orlando to play the Magic. So, and like my immediate thought is they should go 2-1 with what we've seen. I haven't checked in on the Bulls lately. Okay, look at the Bulls of man, the Bulls are 5-8, they're 11th, but like East is apart from the bottom 3 teams in the top 2, it's everyone's got like the same record. Like I think the Bulls this season have been really fun. Like from podcasts I've listened to, they're shooting more threes offensively. I think they've been a lot more fun. Vooch shooting more threes. I think tomorrow's gonna be a really tough game. Like I'm not confident at all the Pistons get a win. I think it's going to be one of those tight games, and they might win it, they might lose it. I think the Charlotte game they have to win, and then the Magic will be that's going to be a real test. I think to see where this team's at because Orlando will be without Paolo, but they're now back to 8-6. Defense is off the charts. Um, so after a bit of a lull there, after losing their best player, like they're figuring it out. And I think even without Paolo, it's gonna be a huge test for the Pistons, especially because it's on the road. So I mean, I think with what we've seen, they should go 2-1. Uh, I think you have to win the Charlotte game, get redemption there. You should have won that game. And then I think they beat the Bulls tomorrow. But I think it's gonna be a really tough game. And then the Magic, I have no idea. I probably expect them to lose that, to be honest, just because it's in Orlando. And I think the Magic's the way they defend will really, really test Cade and Ivy like a lot. So um, but let me know what you think. So they play Bulls tomorrow at home, then they travel to Charlotte and Orlando for their final 2 games. I think 2-1, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's 1-2. But um, yeah, just please beat the Hornets, please. I'm not. You should have won that game last time. Get your redemption. Uh, what? I was just going through some more comments here, guys. From Brian. Beasley said one of many W's. Let's get another one. Yeah. Beasley's all vibes. Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Craig, I think they could do like Atlanta last year and jump up. I think they can as well. I think, well, Atlanta were like 10th or 9th. So, the way they're playing, it definitely could be up the Hawks of last season for sure. Nuggies, I want at least a top 10 pick. If we can get that, we could get Trey Johnson. I've done no draft study, but if you like Trey Johnson, I back you. Yeah, it would be nice to get another top 10 pick. But I don't know. I'm just in such a weird state because night to night, I'm loving this too much. And I know for them to eventually get that top 3 pick, they have to lose games. And this is just so much fun right now. So I'm just taking it game by game, I think. Trying not to think too far ahead. Cloudy, man, we're 7-8 still talking about the draft. Yeah, I know. It annoys people. I've done it heaps. So yeah. Only reason I do it is like I said, for the Pistons to be a championship contender, I think they're missing one guy. So maybe they get it via the draft. Maybe they get it via trade. But yeah, I feel you on that. But I'm guilty of it. Nuggets. I haven't seen these reports about Duran not being happy. I just haven't. So if you've got a link or something, like, can you send it in? Because I have not seen or heard any of that. But because I can't imagine why he would be unhappy. He's still getting his starting role. and he's only really losing minutes because of foul trouble, or he just, Stu's outplaying him, and it's best for the team. Brian, as long as they're improving, I'm happy. Like, I'm content with 15 wins if I'm being honest, but I'm expecting 20. You can't be content with 15 wins. That's horrible. I respect you saying that. I can see content with 26, I could get 15. That. I get what you're saying. Like, it's still an improvement on last year, but 15 wins, like that's pretty much the same as last year. I would be furious. But thank you for the comment. Pulling a guy down the air down their jersey is very, very dirty, and Stu not being available to guard Giannis was the biggest factor. No. Yeah, no, that's fair. I just don't think it's that dirty. Like, genuinely, the way I play basketball. Maybe I'm a dirty player. So, like, no one was hurt, so you just move on. But I understand a lot of people aren't happy with that. I just didn't bother me that much. But I agree. But I don't think that's why the Pistons lost, but it was certainly a factor. Uh, yeah, fair enough. Fair enough, Brian. Yeah, so basically I brought up Stu hitting a three tonight, and he shot two. So no, that's awesome. I think like both threes were in rhythm. As long as he's not forcing it, like yeah, I'm 1 to 2. Hopefully we get back to a point where he's taking three a game if it makes sense for the offense. Like, I don't just want him jacking up 3, 4, 5 because that's like a quota he has to hit. But if he can get the opportunities present themselves, like I want him shooting to like 3 a night and knocking down 36%. Absolutely, the Nerds. I hope they beat the Hornets by a ton this week. Same. Let's do it. They're going to. They're going to. It's on the road, so I think it'll be another close one. But just get your revenge. They should have won that. Okay, Nuggies. I'm reciting what I've heard from a couple of different Pistons podcasts. I just assumed it was true. Okay. No, that's fair. That's fair. I haven't heard it at all, but yeah, I back you. I mean, I find it. I just if it's 100% true, I just find it hard to believe he would be completely frustrated. Like, because I really think he's gotten so much opportunity this season, so much opportunity with the Pistons. He's only missed time due to injury, or like he's never really been benched. Jack, you need a mic stand. I see. Is the quality bad? Because I prefer to have this. The mic stand's a bit annoying, but I might get one. Might get one eventually. But if the quality is really that bad and you can't hear me, then I'll look into it. But I just prefer the handheld one. But I appreciate the feedback. All right, cool. As long as I sound fine, that's good. So guys, I'm just gonna quickly check my DMs. I don't think anyone's coming up today. Um, I've actually had some good guests lined up, but they've pulled out in the last minute the past few times. But I've actually really enjoyed doing this solo, so I hope you have as well. Nothing on Twitter. Just checking Instagram. The Sunday games in particular, always. I know a lot of people are enjoying their day off, so coming on to talk about Pistons after just already watching the game is probably not enough. Oh, here we go. Just football, absolutely. Can you send me a DM on Twitter or Instagram, and I'll flick you a link immediately. And we'll have a chat for 15, 20 minutes. How good? We got a guest. Just quality great. Just would be more relaxing. What do you think? Am I moving around too much or something? More? Do you mean like more relaxing viewing, or more relaxing for me? Can I? Oh, can I email you? Yes, you can. You can email me. Which email should I give you? Um, yeah, I'll send in. Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll give you this email address. I'll send it in the chat. I don't use this one, guys. Not that anyone's going to email me, but um, and then we should be able to get you up. Just Football Academy. All right. Send an email here, and then I'll send you a link back to it. How good. We're always working on the fly here. Excited. I haven't had Just Football Academy up. But I'm pretty sure I know them, but I'm not sure. So this is gonna be fun. Uh, trying to think, guys. Was there where else should we go? I saw some people talking about the schedule getting really hard in December, but um, I'm just gonna see if there's any players I haven't spoken about. Spoken about JB. I thought Tobias tonight, just like 12 points, 28 minutes, 9 rebounds. I think he had a nice block. Like, I don't know. Like, Tobias was fine tonight. He needs to be better overall, but he was fine. Um, Continue to like what I'm seeing from Wendell Moore. 23 minutes tonight. Obviously, I think he probably, um, once THJ is back, probably is out of the rotation or probably will be. But I think another solid game for him. Like, there's something about Wendell Moore, like, I just really he has like this bit of like pass dribble shoot vibe to him. Not a great shooter, but I there's just something about him on the wing. I have this little bit of trust with him with the ball in his hand, which sometimes I don't have with some of the other wings. So he's been a nice little surprise. Um, Ron Holland tonight, yeah, pretty much a non-factor, 0 points. Um, and then Paul Reed came in for 4 minutes at the end. Fontecchio was okay. Um, Return games, hit a couple of threes, which is nice. I think they were in the second half. But yeah, like this game was the Pistons were in control for much of it. So um, yeah, YouTube user. When do we get to see CSR play? I can't wait any longer. I'm with you. I want him back. So I think he was cleared a week ago from today, if I'm not mistaken. So or a week ago. It's been almost a week. So I kind of felt like it was going to be at least 2 weeks before we saw him play. There hasn't been any updates that I'm aware of about an actual date of him returning. So I would still feel like it's a week away. Yeah, I kind of said 2 to 4 weeks, but that's just purely a gut feel. I haven't heard anything. I haven't read anything. Haven't seen anything online about his return date. But I feel like it'll be in the next couple of weeks. But like I said, I think it'll be on a minutes restriction. So I'd be surprised if he's playing more than 15 minutes his first game. Thomas Hardy, any insight in from Bobby Clintman's calf? No, but this calf contusion? He's had this thing. He hasn't played. I don't even think he played in the scrimmage before preseason. So it's been okay. Yeah, I'm just hitting up Rocco now. Rocky. It is Rocky. I knew. So Just Football Academy Australia is Rocky, who I have spoken to before, back on Twitter. What do you call the Twitter thing? Well, I've just gone blank. Anyway, it doesn't matter. All right. We should have Rocky up here in a minute. He's an Australian. He's from Sydney. I'm excited to get him up here and hear his thoughts. But sorry, nothing on Bobby Clintman. Has to be the worst calf contusion of all time, though, is all I'm saying. Because we have not seen him in a Pistons uniform yet. We've seen him in the Pistons training jerseys at Summer League, but we haven't seen him do anything. So it must be pretty bad. Must be almost a tear. So I'm keen to see him, though, because I feel like he's a guy that would have got minutes in the past week or so with the injuries the Pistons have had. Yeah, no, that's fair. And I think that's why, yeah, like you say, long-term YouTube user, he's not a guy that you're going to see in a rotation. But I just have enjoyed some of the things he does, whether it's in transition. Some of his finishes have surprised me, to be honest. He just some of the stuff he can do off the bounce, it's like nothing amazing at all, but it's just kind of surprised me a little bit. Does Sasa get minutes on THJ and Asar return? I don't think he does when both of those guys are back. But when THJ returns, I could see he maybe still being, he could be that 10th man. Maybe. Brian, once Fontecchio finds his rhythm again, this team is going to have a huge jump, Imo. Yeah, and I think the beautiful thing is that they haven't needed him to be productive. Obviously, you want him to be better than he has, but they've been fine without that production. And when when he can knock down shots, and if he can get back to 80% of the Fontecchio that we saw at the end of last season with the Pistons, I think that would be amazing, because that guy he's probably like this season. The thing I'm noticing the most is like, I felt like last year you could do a little bit more in terms of driving and stuff to the rim, whereas this year it just feels like every time he dribbles, it's almost a turnover. But yeah, if he can get back to where he was, that'll be huge. Now I've got my man Rocky here. What's going on?
Good. I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. Thank you for coming on. I thought we were gonna have no one today, but you've come in at the final second.
Yeah. No,
You got
no.
your
I thought I'd
Lions hat
join
on.
you. Sorry.
You got your Lions hat on.
Yeah, I was up 5 in the morning this morning to watch the game, so I was kind of anticipating another heartache of a game, or heart wrenching game for the Pistons. So I was glad that the Lions just put it on.
Yeah. Did they win by 50? Someone said that in the chat.
Yeah, just under like 48 points or something like that.
Is that like the equivalent of like a 50 point? That'd be like, what's that the equivalent to in like basketball terms? That must be like a thumping.
Well, they're basically 6 points for a touchdown and one for a field goal. So it's kind of like, it's more relatable to say soccer, like a 6-0 flogging or 6.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Type thing. So
wow.
yeah.
So how long? So we'll get to the Pistons in a sec. But how long have you been following the Lions? Because I tried to follow the NFL, but the time difference I just couldn't do it.
Yeah, no. I only jumped on the bandwagon a couple of years ago. So it's a Lions supporter by default. I've been a Pistons supporter since the 90s. So
yeah.
So I decided to, pick up following the NFL a couple of years ago. So,
Love it.
thought I'd go the Lions. Why not? They're hot, and
it sounds like you've come at the best time.
Yeah, definitely.
So you said because normally what I ask people first is like how they became a Pistons fan. So you mentioned they're in the 90s.
Yeah.
Is that like Bad Boys Pistons, like late 80s teams?
Yeah, 100%. So the very first time I switched on a TV and saw a basketball game, it just so happened to be the 90s final with the Trailblazers.
Yeah.
And I didn't support any team at that point. I think I was probably 14, 15 years of age. And Isaiah Thomas was just going off, hitting fadeaway threes and stuff like that. So he just became my favorite player. And then, I just started high school. So, Jordan was just coming through then. And that just became my team, the Bad Boys.
I love it. So, and then you've been like, how long do you feel like? Because I remember we spoke a few years ago on like Twitter when I was doing those spaces. And like, so how long have you been have you been a diehard Pistons fan since then?
Yeah.
So you've been,
there was a real big gap there where, obviously the time difference, working 9 to 5 jobs or for me, it was more like 7 to 4 jobs. And, just not being able to watch and follow. So there was a big gap there. I kind of like stumbled upon the 204 Pistons where just sort of came in and out there. But yeah, it was a big gap there where I just stopped following them. But they were always my team. And so I didn't go through all the tough stuff that you guys had to endure. Fortunately.
Well, I think it's good. Also, like, I don't really want to talk about last season, the past decade. I want to talk about this team because I just tweeted out before, like, this is officially my favorite Pistons team I've seen. in the past 10 years or whatever, 12 years. Like, just in terms of like the hope, like the
Yeah.
joy on a night to night basis we're getting, but just the actual long term hope it feels back. I don't know if you ever lost it a bit last season, but yeah, how are you feeling about this team so far?
Oh, no, very, very good. Very big on, character. I guess one of the things, and the reason why I decided to start following the Lions, to be honest, like I went back and watched all the docu-series on the 2021 draft in and how they've rebuilt. And I think the Pistons are doing exactly the same thing. They're trying to build on grit and character. And I think that's really, really important. So you've had all these last 3 years of pain and kind of like the growing pains. That's quite natural. So I didn't feel the pain as much. I guess in my old age, a little bit more patient.
Well,
But
I was going to say you're definitely on Twitter and in the comments here. You're definitely much more patient and
yeah.
level-headed, I would say, than a lot of us, myself included. So, which I appreciate.
Yeah. It takes time. They're young guys, and if you look at it, Cade missed pretty much a whole season, and he's kind of like running parallel with Ivy and Duran in regards to how long he's been in the league. Obviously 1 year more, but he only played 12 games that second year. So they're very young, and I think there's still a few more years before they're going to be a real contender. But I don't know. Sometimes things, especially things that are really slow in building, and there's lots of heartache, and it feels like they've gone backwards. The upturn happens really quickly. So, we're seeing some really good basketball and some, I think they're getting some really good foundation work done with their grit and their defense and just the hustle, and everything else will sort of build from that.
No, it's a great point because the defense right now has probably been the main and the grit and the toughness has probably been the main. Like, I think rebound differential, they're one of the best in the league. All that physicality type stuff, it feels like that's the real foundation. And I know in the past that's been the foundation for successful Pistons teams and a lot of teams, but the fact JB has them playing, like they're well inside the top 10 for defensive rating, like, which
Yeah,
is the metric most people use to determine it. Like, it's crazy. Like, I did not expect that at all. And it's
yeah,
really encouraging because that, like you mentioned, that's a real foundation, like
yeah.
that you can build from.
Yeah, 100%. Like, just to give you an idea, like my son loves basketball, but he's still little, hasn't shot up, right? He's only just turned 12. And one of the things I always play upon is the Detroit hustle, and he really just takes on that identity. So you see this little guy just trying to get balls over the big kids, is always on the floor, taking cops to the head. But only because I know. It looks all messy, and you watch it with Ivy. You can't start with trying to be technically right. You start with hard work and hustle, and it might be ugly and all that, but the technique will come afterwards. So I think he's doing the right thing, JB.
Yeah, he's easily exceeded my expectations. Like I know it's still 15 games in now, but we are approaching like 20 games played, which is a fair chunk of the season. They still got a lot to prove to show they can do this the whole season. But like, I don't know. I thought 28 wins would be a big step in the right direction. What were your expectations and kind of to where they're at now? Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, I thought last year they will go for 33, 35.
Yeah.
And I think last year is just like this massive blemish on the rebuild. I think it's just something that it was unforeseen and just a mess. I think
Yeah.
this year, maybe this year they get that 33, 35. But going in after last year, everyone's kind of like, oh, I don't want to predict that high, so let's go 28. But like, it's just one game at a time. And to be honest, of all the games they've played, The Knicks was definitely one they didn't deserve a win, and I thought the Cavs were just better than they were. But every other game, I feel the Pistons were probably the better team, or slightly ahead in regards to what the way they were playing. Obviously, just really nervy fourth quarters, and were just unable to steady themselves. And I think a lot of the trauma from last year was still there, and so they were getting in their head a little bit. You could just see that the fourth quarter, just like their arms weighed too much, and everything just But I think they've kind of overcome that. They're going to have some tight games, and they're going to lose some, but they've been really, really competitive. And that Bucks game, for example, last year they lose that. They lost it this time, but they were in a position to steal it. And again, we're not getting the whistle. That happens. It's kind of like the rest helping. There's.
They're going to earn their respect, I feel like, as well. But it's frustrating to watch. I agree.
That's always really, really tough.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to bring these comments up, Rocky, because the people are loving you. Drake says, Rocky, spot on. And then YouTube user says, great comment on the technical stuff. Will come in time with Ivy. Ron and Asar will have an ugly but effective game for at least a year or more. And I think that's what you were saying. I agree, YouTube user.
But if we go look at the character stuff, especially players like Ron and Asar, and this is why it's so important to build on an identity. And an identity should look like the Pistons and the way they've had success in the past. And Ron and Asar are pretty much like that. Ron's shot looks great, to be honest. He's not hitting them right now, but it looks really good. He's got nice technique. I think his shot will come along. And then you got Asar, he's like a typical Detroiter. Just hustles, works hard, and look, and that's I guess Beef Stew's another one. I think this is why the city likes players like this. And that's why I get sort of a little bit irritated when people trade these players. Not everyone in your team or your squad has to be a flashy player. You need players like Stew that are going to do the stuff that, dating back to the 90s, you had players that were to be honest, can't even name some of the bench players. Your John Sallies and stuff like that.
Like Rick Mahorn.
Rick Mahorn, John Sally, just these guys that are solid contributors, and Stu will be that.
Definitely. I wanted to ask you quickly, have you been to Detroit?
I haven't. It's on my bucket list. I certainly want to go, especially now that I'm a Lions fan. I want to get there. Ford Field just looks nuts. But definitely want to go. It is on my bucket list of things to do. And I've told my son I'll probably do that one on my own. But I'd love to bring him. But I'll get there. Maybe we should tee it up. We go at the same time and meet you there.
Absolutely. I'm hoping to get there this season, but I just need some things to pan out. But we'll see. I can't wait to go there as well. So I think the cool thing is apparently, you can probably just see it on the map, but people have told me that Ford Field, the Tigers Park, and then LCA are all right next to each other, which I think is so cool.
Well, the way things are trending, it's given us a bit of time, Jack. We don't have to rush into it and put ourselves in a huge debt, because I think the Pistons will be good in a few, let's say 3 years. It gives us some savings.
I remember before last season, I was like, I'm getting there. And then after halfway through November, I was like, no, I can't. But just a bit more on this team. I'm not sure how much time you have, Rocky, because I know you're at work. But
I work from home. I'm all good.
Okay. Thoughts on, I guess, Cade and Jaden Ivey so far this season and long term, because I think they've both been awesome.
Yeah, love them. So they're my 1 and 2. So me getting back into the Pistons scene was working at home, busy on the business, and switched the TV on to watch some of the playoff finals, have it on in the background, and the draft was on. And then Detroit, and I thought, oh shit, I'm going to watch this. Detroit's up there, and then they got the number one, and I was like, wow, okay, cool, that's exciting. So then I started to go back and watch Cade in college.
Yeah,
I watched like numerous games of Cade, and that got me excited. And I thought, oh, cool. So jumped back on and got back into the Pistons. So love Cade, love Ivy. I think 1-2. And if you look back in all the Detroit winning teams, they always had a great backcourt, and they always had a kind of like unselfish backcourt where it's not about one predominantly. Obviously, he had Isaiah Thomas, but then Joe Dumars was really such a good Robin to him, and so was Rip to Chauncey. And I think we've got the same here because as much as Ivy, and I think the fan base are really caught up. A lot of the fan base are caught up in it's got to be one or the other, but the players aren't like that. They don't see it that way. Kay doesn't see it that way. Kay's not even that type of a player. Like he knows he's the alpha, and then you got Ivy that's just willing to relinquish that to be a team player. So I think it's great backcourt, and really need to build off that. And we've always had success off backcourt like that because they're the type of players that know how to work in a team environment. And Detroit always have success as a team.
It's such a good call, the unselfish one about the backcourts, because you're so right. Like Billups and Rip, like Billups, you would probably say was the better player, I feel like, but he's unselfish. Like he wasn't the guy that averaged 25. And same with Isaiah, like pass for like pure point guard, like could score as well at will. And I feel like Cade's the same. Cade can get you 28 to 30, but I think what we're seeing as well, like he just much prefers to get his teammates involved. And I think now, and I think he's always been that way. Like I remember watching some I think it was under 18 Team USA stuff, and I was like, whoa, he just looks like Lonzo Ball out here in the sense like he just passed first every time in junior. Like maybe I didn't watch enough, but like he's a guy who can get you 20, but he's just like almost past first, I feel like. So it's such a good call from you that you're so right. A lot of the fan base gets very caught up on, no, Ivy's going to be the leading scorer. And, Cade, do we trade Cade? Or Cade needs to fit in off the ball, or the reverse is probably more where the fan base is. But I think what we're seeing this season is maybe the best version of those two is they're both probably just averaging like 20 to 22 points.
Yeah, I think so.
Cade's got more usage, but they're just playing off one another and they take over the game at different times. And Ivy's more aggressive and explosive, but Cade, ideally can be your closer. And such a good call from you. I haven't thought about it like that.
I certainly think what we haven't really seen too much of it from Cade just yet, but from what I saw in college, and we've seen it. We've seen it in chunks here and there through his 4 years. But he's the type of guy that he'll get his teammates involved. He'll be cold, not really doing much, but then come up big when you need him to come up big. I don't think this year we've seen a lot of it. He's come up big, good, like defensively. He hasn't hit big shots, enough of them. But I think that's something that we will see as a trademark of his in the future. I think it's still a young team, and but that's I feel that's what Cade is. And again, no surprise if Ivy in his career will be a higher scorer than Cade, potentially, but Cade will be the main guy. I think he'll always be the main guy.
Yeah, he's definitely the leader, the alpha, and like you said, the closer. But I'm with you. I think Ivy could be the guy that if they're together in their primes, like Ivy could be the guy who averages the more points per game. But Cade's still the closer. Drake says the way Cade has been playing defense these last few games, I could definitely see it. Isaiah took pride on both ends. Chauncey did the same. So just echoing what you kind of said.
Yeah, it's a Detroit thing. So,
It's funny how things just sort of work like that, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like
he's got to
these two
take
need to
himself.
prove it, but yeah, there's just always that synergy a little bit. Where else do you want to take it, Rocky? I haven't actually really asked you about tonight's game, have I? I feel like I'm taking the more zoomed out approach because great game, great team win, some really good individual performances, but I felt like they should have won that. So that's why I more so want to hear overall thoughts. But any thoughts on tonight's game?
Yeah, look, so I was up at 5 a.m. I had a big day yesterday at work. So I actually went back to sleep. I thought it was 11 o'clock game, so I had my alarm set and I missed like the first quarter. So I missed a lot of the game. So I won't have much to say on the game, but it was funny sitting there watching it, and it was a blowout, and you knew they were going to win it. And I was like, kind of bored of this.
I
As
was
much
loving it, not gonna lie, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
it is, yeah, but it is so good that they needed a game like this. I think it's kind of like, everyone has been saying like, why is it always a 1 point game? And I don't know if my heart can take it. But to get a win like this, it had to be earned, and it has been earned over the past 8 or so games with those tight ones. They've earned the right to blow out a team, and so I think that's what happened today. I was a bit surprised to see how dominant they were, to be honest, at the end and close that out. Like, I didn't want them to allow the Wizards to come in. I think it's just going to wear on them if they just keep on, taking it down to the wire. But they're also getting lots of lessons in that. So, yeah.
No, I think you're right. They did earn that because, like, the thing with the Raptors game, I think the Raptors the next day almost beat Boston. Jason Tatum hit a buzzer beater in overtime to beat them. So,
He
I
traveled.
don't know. What's that?
I think he traveled as well. That's what I saw.
Really? So, I mean, maybe the Raptors aren't as bad as they look, but I mean, the East is, any single night, like you look at the records, it's even across the board. So, but it was I think it's just nice to be able to relax because that past 2 weeks or whatever it's been, I've just been like, I feel like do you follow AFL? I think you're a Swans fan, aren't you?
Yeah, Swans fan. Yeah, I don't follow it too closely, but I do watch the occasional game and then the big ones, obviously.
Well, because I caught up with some friends that like the other day, and they were just like, "Oh, how's it all going? Like doing this full time?" And I was like, I did not expect the emotional toll it takes, the exhaustion, like physically, just like watching these games and then talking about it. Like I really underestimated that. And I was like, the best way I can describe the Pistons past 2 weeks is like watching your favorite team play in like your favorite footy team play in a prelim final or something every 2 days. It's like the emotional toll. I was like, I can't like this. So today I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I can understand the frustrations, but then and I get emotionally involved as well. Like even to this day, but I guess I quickly level out and go, you know what, they're only human and it's going to happen. And look, it's the NBA, like it's just so common. For like you have a 14-point lead and it's just always going to happen that the team will go on a run. I think the most important lesson for the Pistons, and from what I've noticed in their past few games, or mainly from this year to last year, was when teams went on a run, it really destroyed them. And then they just get overrun. And whereas now teams will go on a run, I think they've just understood that that's just the way basketball is. Can we stop the bleeding? Can we get a score and then just work our way back? And we don't have to, get that 14-point lead back again. It's just, we just need to stop it, get a score. And they've done it really, really well. There was it 2 days ago? What was the last game they played?
Toronto. They got down by like 8.
Yeah, there was a game where at halftime, I think they were up by double digits, and they went on a run. It was down to 6 just before halftime. And in your head, you're thinking, "Oh crap!" Like you just want them to go into the half with a massive lead, and they stopped the bleeding, and then they stretched it back out into double digits again.
Yeah.
And like good teams do that.
Yeah.
Because that's happened. How many times has that happened to the Pistons where they chip away, they get really, really close, and then it stretches back out to a double-digit lead, and you're like, wow, all that work for nothing. Now, when's the next one going to come?
Well, like, I mean, last season was horrible, but I felt like once they made the trades and stuff post the deadline, before like the last 5 games, they were in so many games, but like you said, they're always trailing. They would get back, and then the better team just puts them away. But feels like this year they've been ahead more often than not, and it's been a case of like the lead. They give up the lead, but then they're showing that resilience to like get it back, or they've had close losses, which have been frustrating. But it's still a massive positive, and I feel like they're just learning how to close games. Like, I fully agree with what you said earlier about you could see in these close games where that you could just tell mentally they're going back to last season. Everything's getting like they're getting nervous, but I feel like they're just going. That is actual growing pains. I don't like they're just figuring it out because they haven't had much of that experience, at least this young core.
Yeah, there's a bit of trauma there, and the thing is, they will get that will be all forgotten, before too long. More of these games where they're learning how to, close them out and come home with a victory, and yeah, I think the past, hopefully, before too long, will be a thing of distant future. I mean, just for them, forgotten.
I mean, the only time this season I felt like the Knicks game, I feel like we can definitely say that was like an aberration or whatever you want to call it. Like, I don't think that's a true resemblance of this team at all this season. That was just you just have those games. They're probably gonna have a couple more this season, but yeah.
That was a worry, though.
What's that?
That was a worry. When that happened, I was like, oh no, really?
Yeah. Because they were 1-4. They just beat like a depleted Philly team. Then that happened, and you're like, "Ooh,
yeah." Okay. It kind of brought everything, like all those memories back, and it's like, oh, maybe because they started well last year, right?
Yeah,
as well. So that was a concern, but it's credit to them that they haven't had a game like that since. But even if you look at that game and you just break that game down in itself, it was the first quarter that killed them, and then they just weren't able to chip back at that lead. The Knicks were just really ruthless, and they didn't give us a sniff.
No, not at all. Not at all. They went crazy.
The
Pistons responded with they will go beat Brooklyn on the road, then a back-to-back win. They beat the Lakers at home. Then the Lakers are 8-4 now in the West. So I'll take any win over the Lakers, but I think the Lakers 100%. Are actually pretty good this season. So it's been an awesome response. Any other Pistons thoughts, Rocky? Any other thoughts at all? I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, no, not that I can think of now off the top of my head. Look, I'm just excited that they're playing well again, and they're well coached. The other thing actually did come to mind. The way they move around, like in offense in particular, or even in defense, but it's like they know the playbook, they know what they're doing. There's no question. They don't often look lost. I think they seem to be more cohesive this year.
Definitely.
And that's really interesting because JB is a new coach, right? It's not as if it's a second year. But yeah, I don't know what to put that down to, because last year, I guess, look, if the culture's right and everything's just going to go right, you see it. But again, I always bring up the Lions, but they're just incredible team. And you just look at the culture and the way all the players bond. I think the Pistons are feeling the same way.
Great point. I think the chemistry is the best I can recall. Like, the vets and the young guys seem so connected. And then their coach as well. The fact JB can make moves where he sits like his vets, he sits his young guys. Like, he played Marcus Sasser down the stretch over Ivy for a long stretch in that Toronto game. Played Wendell Moore over like probably Tobias. I just think the fact JB can do that already so early just shows what a good group they have, as well as it's a credit to him. But like you said, the chemistry and I heard last season some things like that. Yeah, inside that team, from top down was not good at all. And I heard from someone who went to another NBA team that the Pistons, like you cannot even compare the level of professionalism from the new NBA team they went to from the Pistons. Like, so I think that's why I was so big last season about cleaning out front office, because I just don't think things were right. And I think like it was not all on Troy, and not to bring all this back up, but I think I only bring it up because you were talking about like chemistry and the vibes, and it just feels like there's a real buy-in from everyone from top down, real synergy, which I think has been missing for a while.
Well, the most important thing is that there's accountability. Like when you build the right culture, you see it. You see, like someone like Cade can go and get in Stu's face and just say, straighten your act out. That's not on, etc. Like you're not going to be able to do that unless you have a trust and a relationship, like a strong enough relationship. So yeah, they're good signs, and you need that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been good to see. I feel like Cade stepped up as a leader this year as well with his play, but just from what we can see on the court.
Yeah,
he's coming into his own.
And the vets are really good. Like we always talk about the vets, but not just from a production point of view. Like they had some good vets before, like Burks and Boyan, but they didn't seem to be like this year. You've got your Beasley and Hardaway Jr. Not only do they care about playing, but they also care about what happens with the young guys and the teammates, and going. They're bought in. I just don't feel like as good a shooter Burks was and Boyan and they were just pieces that were coming in to help a young group, whereas Beasley, Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias, they're like pieces as opposed to they're just here to help the young guys. It's one.
No, it's good because I feel like as well Beasley and Tobias both chose to sign here, and I feel like so there's automatic buy-in there. And some might say, well, no one else was going to give Tobias that money, but he actually, I think he's like funding housing in Detroit or something with his brother. Like he loves Detroit, he wants to be there, he wants to be a part of that. And then Beasley, obviously, like he's been awesome. But I think for Tim Hardaway Jr. as well, who's been out, he got traded to Detroit, and I think he has something to prove because Mavs fans and everyone like tore him to bits for his postseason, like, and I think he feels a bit disrespected. And I think he, up until his that scary fall he had, like he might have been the best of the three vets. Like honestly, like Beasley's probably overtaken him now, but THJ is like he was exceptional.
Yeah, no, he was the best vet. Beasley's coming good now. We just sort of see Tobias. Look, he does his bit. I think the thing with Tobias is, I'm not too sure he's a big shot maker.
I think I saw you say this somewhere.
Yeah,
sorry,
I put it off, no, I think I posted it on Twitter. It seems that like he'll hit the corner three and he'll hit some beautiful shots when, just in the course of the game. But when you really need it, like you might be down like 2, and it's just like you get a breakaway and he's wide open and he just won't hit it, and you're like, to put you up like for the first time in the game or something like that. So he does. I don't know if he's got a clutch gene. I didn't follow his career too much, but
he was always a guy. So when he played for the Pistons the first time. And YouTube user just says here, THJ has the Michigan connection as well, which is a great call. Obviously playing college there. When he was in Detroit, his first stint, I feel like he would come out and he'd always have these huge first quarters. Like I remember he had a 20-point first quarter, but he'd always fade. So he's a guy. I don't think he's ever really been a closer, but I have been the team's doing fine, but I have been a little bit disappointed just with his production on a night-to-night basis. But I think on the defensive end, like rebounding and getting blocks and steals here and there and trying, like I think he's been fine on that end. And I think overall for culture, leadership, stuff you've all mentioned, I think he's great. I think it's just be good if he could find a bit more consistent offensively.
I think as the team is constructed at the moment, I think it's really, really good. We really need him at the 4, but I think we need a young 4 to replace him. And look, Flag would be perfect, but I think that's going to be a piece that we'd be looking at filling at some point, because you got your 1 and 2, you got Asar, you got your centre. You just look, the centre's Duran's still, he's young as well.
I feel like the centre position, you can probably find a vet there if Duran doesn't work out. But I'm with you. The 4 is the position.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the backcourt's set, and then Asar, and then it's like, how do you feel that forward position? Because I feel like what they really lack is consistent scoring from a front court player, and someone who can, like, they don't have to be like creating heaps off the dribble and like a flashy player like we've spoken about, but just some consistent, like 16 to 20 points from your front court, like a player that can give you that, which is what kind of Tobias is meant to be, but obviously a way younger version. I think it's spot on what you said.
Like a Franz Wagner or something like that.
Yeah. I think that's what they're missing.
Yeah.
But
they got some time.
They got time, I think.
A year or two. You got to find someone, and then you got to bring him in. And look, it could be from a trade. There's a lot of young guys out there. Yeah. So you never know.
Well, I've seen some people talking about Jabari Smith Jr., people are always talking about Kuminga. Those are younger guys that are still looking for their next contract. But I agree with you. The 4 is like the long-term position that needs to be filled the most, just to figure out who's going to play there. I think where we'll leave it, Rocky, I want to get your prediction for this week. So they play back-to-back against Josh Giddey and the Bulls tomorrow at home. And then they travel, they have a 2-day break, play in Charlotte. And then they also, I think the last game of the week, they travel to Orlando, play the Magic, who are looking pretty good recently. Yeah. How do you think they'll go? What are you expecting?
I think they'll get Charlotte. Yeah. That's a revenge game, and I think we should have had them last time. It's so disappointing. That one was disappointing. For some reason, I feel like Orlando is going to be tough, but we can get the Bulls, and we're at home against the Bulls. So let's go 2-1, Bulls, Charlotte, and then I'm not sure. Orlando is a tough one, especially away from home, but that's the one I'd want the most. So if I had to give up, say stay 2-1, and the one loss, I'd say I'd happily give away the Bulls one and then win the next 2. Yeah, because I want to beat Charlotte, get a bit of revenge there, and I want to beat the Magic.
That would be huge.
Yeah, I think Magic is huge because, like you said, they're a good team, but they've also got a really good young core of players. Yeah. And so I kind of feel like we're on a competitive level to them. Yeah. Because you got to think about over the next, and this is one thing I like about Cade. Cade's always been like the alpha across his era of players, and that's like your Mobleys and all those guys. And eventually they're going to be the core players in the NBA. Yeah. So, that's why I see a good future for Detroit, because they got the right guy. Yeah. So that's why I want the Orlando one. But for some reason, I think they'll maybe go 2-1, win the next 2. Orlando will be tough at home.
I agree. I think Bulls tomorrow is going to be a tough game. I could see them losing by 2, and if they win, I think it'll be by less than 5. I think Charlotte have to win that. Like you said, revenge game. Just win that. If you only win one game this week, I mean, maybe you would want it to be the Magic, but just beat Charlotte. You should have won that game. And then Magic, I think if I'm putting money on it, I think they lose, but I would love them to beat them. I hate Franz and Mo Wagner. I just don't. They're great, like both great players in their own role. I just don't like them. I want the Pistons to win. I want to that. I'm like you. If there's one game they could win, it's that one. But I think, unfortunately, if I'm putting money on it, making a prediction, it's probably the one they lose.
Yeah. That's my predictions.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for jumping on, mate. Really appreciate it. You're welcome anytime. The people have loved having you on in the comments. So please come back if you ever have the time. We can do it over email. We've found a new way to get people on here today, which I absolutely love.
I did actually find your email on your YouTube channel. There was one, but
Gotcha. Yeah. I didn't even know I had it there. But we got there in the end. Thank you so much, mate. I really appreciate you coming on and love hearing your thoughts on the team.
Yeah, love what you're doing, Jack. Keep it up, bro.
Thanks, mate. We'll chat soon.
See you, bud.
Bye. All right, guys. How good was that getting Rocky up? Rocky's been commenting. I've seen his stuff for ages. Not even just on my stuff, obviously, just on a lot of Pistons stuff. He supports all the content creators, always has great thoughts. So I really appreciate him jumping on. And as you've seen, we got him on via email. So if you're not even on Twitter or Instagram, just send a comment into the chat and we can get you on via email. I didn't even think of that. So awesome to have Rocky up. I'm just gonna. There's a few more comments here I just want to get to, and then we're gonna wrap it up. So Drake, last year Kuzma made a comment about our team during the losing streak. Pistons joked back after the game today. Thought it was funny. When you say Pistons joke back, is that just because they won, or did the players actually do something? Because that would be awesome. But yeah, we spoke about earlier. I think the Pistons are now 3-0 since Kuzma did that against the Wizards. So yeah, they're getting the best revenge. Might end up being Bobby. For the 4 position. I like Bobby, but I think he's just more of a role player. But yeah, I hope you're right, because that means they have that guy on the roster, and that'd be cool. YouTube user, I think Asar could be a long-term 4. I'm not as sure about Ron and Duran 3 and 5 long-term. My only thing, I think Asar can be your 3 or 4. When I was saying, so yeah, I agree with you. I think the front court is like positions 3 to 5 or small forward to center. If Asar can become a guy that averages 18 to 22 or 16 to 20, whatever, efficiently, then he could be that guy. Yeah, you're not wrong. Because I think he can play the 4 if you needed him to. But yeah, Ron and Duran have a lot to prove before I can say they're the 3 and 5. But honestly, like, if the Pistons are building around Ivy, Asar, and Cade, I'm not sure financially they would have the means to keep Ron and Duran for it to make sense. If Ron and Duran actually get to a point where they're worth extending, if that makes sense. So if Ron and Duran I hope that makes sense. Killing Me Hayes knocked out Mo Wagner. Yes, I'll never forget that. That was just so uncharacteristic from Killian as well. But it's not even that the reason I don't like Mo and Franz. If they were on my team, I would love them. They just talk so much trash and yell and scream, and particularly Mo, it annoys me because he's a role player. So, and Franz is a bit like that as well. So, and there was stupid comparisons that Franz is better than Cade a season or 2 ago. So that also annoys me a bit. But both actually really good players, and if they're on my team, I would love them. They just annoy me. So I just want the Pistons to win. And yeah, I know they both went to Michigan, but I don't have any actual real ties to the Michigan. To the college. So yeah, I don't feel bad for not liking those 2. I agree, YouTube user, great guest. And thank you for your comments, YouTube user. Appreciate all your feedback, comments as per usual. Thank you to Drake as well. Honestly, Thomas Hardy, Brian, Beastly Arrow, you always come through for me in the comments. Nuggies, the nerds. Appreciate all of you guys always returning. And yeah, before I wrap it up, guys, I appreciate you all watching. If you could subscribe if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it. It helps the show continue to grow. But even if you don't, thank you so much for watching. And we'll be back tomorrow to talk about Bulls game and hopefully another win. But until then, as always, go Pistons.